Tesla holds the entire EU car market to ransom. I do love ironies, and the latest is just too good to be true. The European Commission has just announced that Stellantis, Ford, Renault, and loads of others are all pooling their EV sales to get their emission figures down and EV penetration up to avoid paying draconian fines relating to the lethal and damaging emissions pouring out of the exhaust pipes of ICE cars. And Tesla is the pool manager. I'm Dave. This is Dave Takes It On. Well, big thanks to our new Patreon members who've joined us since December. Now, I do love research. A seemingly innocent line in a document can often lead to startling news as you begin to dig deeper. So with the EU Commission. Now, we know that the UK has a target for EV penetration of 22% in 2024, rising to 28% in 2025, and there are draconian penalties for missing these targets. We recently made a video about that, and a link to that is down below. But we're not alone. The EU Commission is equally worried and also has set increasingly onerous targets for its member states. It had fairly lenient levels of CO2 emissions allowable for 2020 right through to 2024, then more draconian targets for 25 and beyond, leading to 2035, when forever after, the level will be zero. No new cars will be allowed that have exhaust emissions. And far from backpedaling, the consensus is that the target date might need to be altered and actually brought forward. In fact, most countries around the world now do have similar targets for reducing CO2 levels and pollution, and serious penalties for missing them. China, Malaysia, Brazil, Australia, most of the countries around the world. Well, reading through the reasons for setting CO2 targets within Europe, we find that the EU Commission blames ICE cars fairly and squarely for 16% of overall emissions of CO2, which all ICE cars produce, which they also claim is the main greenhouse gas driving climate change. This is not at all new. They claim that since legislation was introduced in 2020, it has already reduced 27% of the CO2 from new cars between 2019 and 2022. They state the main driver of this reduction is the surge in zero-emission vehicles, electric cars. In April 2023, in order to speed up the adoption of EVs, the targets became even more severe from the end of 2024, and many automakers are already missing or increasingly very likely to miss their targets. Well, if Legacy thinks this is bad, take a look at the 2025 targets. That's not good news at all. Well, the facts are now in. All countries urgently need to reduce pollution and CO2, and the main cause is ICE cars. New EVs drop that emission by over a quarter. So much for all those armchair climate change denying self-proclaimed experts who blame it all on China or natural cycles. What can be done to reduce CO2? And the EU tried asking the car manufacturers to voluntarily reduce emissions. They not only did nothing for decades to reduce pollution from exhaust pipes, but instead emissions actually increased as they made bigger and heavier cars. No, don't blame EVs. It's nothing to do with them. This is all years ago with the arrival of the obscenely massive petrol and diesel SUVs that get the nickname in UK Chelsea tractors, the Range Rovers and BMW X7s. And that one, by the way, weighs in at over 2.5 tons. That's nearly a ton heavier than a Model 3 EV. And does a stated 26 miles to the gallon, but in reality, most never get anywhere near that much. 18 miles per gallon is not uncommon. Well, factor that in when you tell us EV drivers that 79p public charging is extortionate. Well, in addition, almost unbelievably, some manufacturers went much further in actually refusing to install emission-lowering technology they already had in order to reduce their costs and make higher profits. Well, it was a story that got precious little coverage from the mainstream media. Between 2006 and 2014, several manufacturers, BMW, Daimler, Audi, Porsche and VW, reached a secret agreement, collusion, to delay or restrict measures and technology they already had that would reduce emissions in order to make higher profits. They eventually were found guilty and they got hit with an €875 million fine. Hey, you ICE drivers, is this the industry you're trying to convince me is the future of car manufacturing? Okay, 2020 and legislation is introduced with targets, and in 2024 those targets were not met by some companies, and that meant potentially heavy fines. But 2025 is a much bigger worry as the targets get progressively stricter from now on with each passing year. But they were offered a get out of jail card, well, several in fact. Companies that missed targets had a number of options. They could include some future sales. So if they were ramping up production of EVs in 2024, but in 2025 they expected to easily beat the targets, they could count some of that expected excess this year, so on into the future. Well, this was obviously not an option if they'd done next to nothing and were not even close to being able to hit 2025 targets. Or they could pool the results with other companies within the group that exceeded the 2024 target. A group like VW or Stellantis could use sales from any company within the group that exceeded the target and share that with one or more that didn't. Again, if none of the group exceeded the targets, they had nothing to share. And that left finding outside companies that exceeded the 2024 or 2025 targets, and they were allowed to enter into pooling agreements with the permission of the EU Commission. They actually had to apply. So, trawling through such documents back in December, I found a few had already actually made such applications. Well, the culprits applying that potentially needed to pool, or believe they would, in order to avoid the fines were massive names. Stellantis, Ford, Toyota. Well, they led the list, but Kia, Renault, Chinese company Great Wall Motors, along with smaller ones like Subaru and Mazda. It's actually almost easier to say who isn't on the list. Well, keeping track of these lists, some of them have advanced by the time we get to 2025. And now, for the first time, they not only listed the companies that might be needing help, but also those that could help. Now, I'm obviously going to be labelled a fanboy, but the company offering to help is pretty obviously Tesla. It's so obvious, really, in that they're probably the only company who actually had enough credits to make any sort of a difference. Yeah, you'll shout Rivian, but you see, the overall pool formed might include giants like Ford, and the pool as an entity must have collectively enough credits to remain in credit. Rivian's still quite small. Tesla, on the other hand, makes nearly 2 million cars every year, and every single one of them is zero emissions. They do have enough to share around, but even they have limits. If every single automaker in the world applied, they would fall far short. Well, the EU requires all participants in a pool to sign an NDA, non-disclosure agreement, to the pool manager and declare their actual CO2 figures and all other relevant data. Well, this is dynamite. Ford and Toyota need to come completely clean to Tesla with amazingly sensitive commercial data. Oh, by the way, they must also pay a fee to the pool manager, Tesla, for costs involved in calculating and analysing those figures. Well, the pool manager is responsible for ensuring that the total emissions of the pool do not exceed the total available credits. Well, this is all covered by NDAs, so the exact details are not public, and likely they never will be, but it's a reasonable assumption that Tesla will not do this for free. The fines are draconian, so pooling is infinitely more attractive and much in demand. Giving those credits away free is not on the cards for anyone, certainly not Tesla. Now, the total irony is that Tesla, the company, the profit, the EV manufacturer that everyone's trying to beat, the clear market leader, is actually now their best hope for survival. And despite anything and everything that Musk spouts and what all the haters claim, there seems to be a rather large queue forming to ask him to help. Please, can we pool with you? Pretty please. Well, Tesla is very likely to offer that help, but at a cost. Now, Tesla actually has little need for even more cash. They are amazingly cash rich and virtually debt free. So, what could the cost be? What deals make sense to Elon Musk? You've got to think way back to August the 2nd, 2006, to the original secret Tesla Motors master plan. I stated, and I quote, "This is because the overarching purpose of Tesla Motors and the reason I am funding the company is to help expedite the move from a mine and burn hydrocarbon economy towards a solar electric economy, which I believe to be the primary but not exclusive sustainable solution." End of quote. So if Elon is true to his word, then the price he demands is likely to be something that achieves or enhances or speeds up the attainment of that goal. If it's all for show, then Elon could just destroy most of his competitors by giving them nothing at all, no pooling. Now, on the back of my fag packet calculation, Tesla does not have enough credits to rescue all the applicants. So what is he likely to ask, and who is he likely to help? I can see a few examples. Ford Motor Company is one of the laggards. It was late into the EV market. It entered really half-heartedly, very high prices, poor products, and recently has been rolling back or cancelling most of or all of their EV-related projects, including EV and battery factory new builds. Well, this is really strange because Ford has just seen a massive jump in EV demand. And in fact, 2024, the Mustang Mach-E outsold the petrol version by more than 7,700 cars. Boy, did that decision to roll back EV and battery development in favour of hybrids come at exactly the wrong time. Now, these targets might not be a problem today. Most automakers might survive 2024, possibly even next year, when the targets start getting much tougher. But they must be getting worried, or they wouldn't apply for pooling in the first place. They wouldn't reveal to the world that they even need to pool, and they certainly wouldn't entertain having to give all of their relevant commercially sensitive data to the pool manager, Tesla. Or Tesla could choose to pool with Ford. Not a natural choice on the surface, but Musk and Farley are already on good talking terms. And of course, they recently adopted the NACS, North American Charging System, which benefited both companies enormously. Other manufacturers rapidly followed their example. In return for pooling and saving Ford millions or billions in fines, Tesla maybe could offer their highly respected software under license and the undertaking to add FSD, if it ever exists, under license to every future EV that Ford ever makes. Every EV that Ford would make would earn a revenue for Tesla. Well, if Ford ever got to be a real rival, a true competitor overtook them, Tesla would still win. And that is exactly the sort of deal that got Bill Gates to become a billionaire. Way back in 1980, before home computers were even seriously thought about, IBM signed a deal with him that in essence said, well, if ever they or any other computer manufacturer ever made home computers, they would all guarantee run on Microsoft software called MS-DOS. The rest is history. At the time, IBM thought absolutely no chance. Home computers, ridiculous. Well, much like today, people go, FSD, no chance, ridiculous. Time will tell. Or they might choose to pool with Stellantis. Again, deals would be done in return for bailing them out. The list of potential deals is almost endless, but each one could be designed to advance the world adoption of EVs. How about Toyota? Would they be open to a deal now that they can see their world dominance rapidly declining? The problem is, as I calculated, I believe that Tesla cannot save them all. They do not have enough credits to go around. Nor can the EU, or for that matter anyone else, bail them all out if they're all fined. The sums involved are simply staggering. Tesla effectively can make or break any of the companies on the EU pooling list, or more accurately, Tesla will have to choose which ones to help and which to abandon. The automakers know this. There must be a bit of an incentive to get in there quick and get their feet under the table. Oh, by the way, do seem to remember many comments I received from those not favourable to EVs claiming that, well, Tesla only made a profit thanks to all the EV credits it was selling, and they would quickly dry up and end, and then Tesla would go bust. Yeah. Any similar thoughts now? Bit of advice: when you're in a hole, stop digging. My regular EV haters and deniers are already busily writing their comments. I know exactly what they will all say. Well, to me, with a calmer head, this is decision time for Musk. While many of the really negative comments the channel receives are ferociously against the man personally, not the company, yes, I do make that distinction. Here is an opportunity to show the world that his 2006 mission statement was actually true. He meant it. Help those that are going to advance the adoption of EVs and reject those that may be offering you more money but are paying mere lip service when it comes to making EVs. This could be a pivotal, transformational point in EV adoption. EVs are already here to stay. They will succeed, but here much can be done to help or hinder the progress. I'm Dave. If you have enjoyed this video, please click the like button. As always, I value all comments, but please keep them legal and clean. For those who want to see more like this, please subscribe and click the notification bell icon. Well, this channel is supported by the increasing number of Patreon members. Just the price of a cup of coffee gives you a whole month of membership. Big welcome to our new members who have joined us since December. And more importantly, for the members who've been around for far longer, for sticking with us and supporting the channel. I thank you. I'm Dave.